Have you thought about what you want to do with your body after you pass away? Have you really considered whether you want to be buried or cremated? A lot of people just figure they're going to be buried because that is the traditional thing to do. But have you really done the research behind burial versus cremation? I have, and my family and I have talked about a lot of things, and a lot of my family prefers cremation over burial. And today I would like to talk to you about why we prefer cremation over burial and why we feel that you should consider it as well. That being said, there are some religious practices and cultures out there that cremation is not allowed, and for that, I am not trying to convert you into this, and I respect your decisions and I respect your beliefs and your practices, and I just appreciate you listening to my speech. So, I'm going to start by what cremation actually is. It's the process of using heat and flame to reduce the body into its essential elements, using a specially designed funeral furnace known as a cremation chamber. So it started around 3000 BC in Europe. It lost its popularity as the rise of Christianity spread through the Roman Empire, and then started to rise again in the late 19th century. In 2018, it was reported that 54% of all deaths resulted in cremation, and that number is expected to grow to 60% by 2024. So there are some pros and cons, and I would never just say do this and not tell you that there are some things that are different about it. So I'm going to tell you some pros and cons of cremation and kind of alleviate some of those cons for you. So the pros of this are definitely the cost. So as far as we're going to talk about two different costs. One is called a direct cremation versus a direct burial. And so, with a direct cremation and a direct burial, this is you pass away, you are cremated, you go into an urn. You pass away, you are buried, or you go into a casket and you are buried. And that is it. Okay? This is without the funeral services. This is without the gravesite services. This is without the memorial, the church, all of that. Okay? So this is just a very stripped down cost. So on average, the cremation itself costs about $300, depending on the size and age. So the cremation casket, you do have to have a casket for the cremation. It is a wooden or a cardboard casket that is going to be burned with the body. So it is not expensive. It is not like the caskets that you are buried with the inner lining and all of that. They're relatively inexpensive for the fact that they are going to be burned. They usually run about $50 to $100 for the very bottom dollar basic cost. An urn can be purchased anywhere from $100 to $300. So there are some very very basic ones, and then there are some very expensive ones. You can go on some very high levels with urns and memorial cremation urns. It just depends on where you want to go with the cost. But we're just talking bottom dollar here. Okay, so as far as with a direct burial, you are talking for the burial itself, the casket, and for a marker, just a plain marker to mark the gravesite. $1,500 for the burial itself, about anywhere from $800 to $1,200 for a standard basic casket, and anywhere from about $100 for a marker. These numbers could be inflated a little bit based off of state, location, and all of that. Just these are just numbers that I happen to get off of one particular site. So as far as that goes, you are looking at hundreds versus thousands, could potentially, for costs of burying versus cremating a body. So another thing is portability. Portability, as far as cremation goes, you are not stuck in one place with that. So I have family all over the U.S. I have family in Texas. I have family in Arkansas. I have family in Maryland. Um, I have family in Florida. I have family in California. We're a little bit scattered everywhere. And we also have people buried a little bit of everywhere. I have a grandfather that's buried in Arkansas. I have a grandmother that's buried here. Um, I have um, I have other family members that are cremated. So
I gotta go in the bathroom.
sorry, it's my daughter. So based off of that, there are places that I can't go to visit these people. I can't go to Arkansas whenever I feel like to visit my grandfather's gravesite. And with cremation, you have the portability in that due to the fact that, especially with today, you have so many options for the memorial, and it's very customizable. You don't just have to put them in an urn. You can take their ashes and you can put them in jewelry. You can put them in ornaments. You can take the ashes and put them in tattoos if you would like, and carry them with you always. There's lots of options for that. It's very flexible with that. I just want to point out that just want to show just a few options. I don't, not to be morbid or anything, but like I said, my family, we do choose cremation. And so my aunt, uncle, and my father have all passed away. They are cremated, and we do have the remains here at my house. There are options that doesn't look like your grandmother's fireplace with the urn. My aunt and my uncle were avid Harley riders. They loved their motorcycles. And when they passed away, we actually chose this replica gas tank to put their ashes in. It is sealed. They are not coming out of here. This doesn't come off. It's a beautiful piece that we have in remembrance. Their daughters and son actually took parts of their ashes and made their own jewelry. And this was given to me to hold on to until my mother passes away, because my mother, my father, and my aunt and uncle were best friends, and they all wanted their ashes to be scattered together. My father did also pass away, and his looks a little different. His is more like a box. It has a plaque on it. It does open at the top. It does not open to have ashes in here. It is a memory box. It's a false bottom. You cannot get inside of this. It is very, very solid. You can just actually put memories in here. When the kids get school pictures taken, we like to put them in here. It is our way of sharing memories with my father, who has passed. Like I said, we keep this, and when my mother passes away, we'll take the ashes and we'll mix the four of them together, and we will spread them how they chose to be spread. With that, it's very flexible. So the timeliness in memorial services that happen with cremations don't have to be as quick as funerals that happen with burials. There is no embalming. There is no rush on getting the body prepped because it doesn't have to go back into the earth as quickly. So therefore, you can get them cremated, you can hang on to them, and you can choose to do the service at your leisure. There's no big rush, so you can do what you need to mourn and to take the time that you need to set up what you need. So I definitely think that's a pro. There are some cons, but I'd like to alleviate a few of those cons for people. Some people say that the location itself is a con, which I disagree. I think the portability is great because they like to have that place to go and sit and have that peace of mind with their family members. But like I said, with all these great options today, you can carry that person with you. You can do so many wonderful things. Religion, like I said, if it is against your religious or cultural practices, I totally respect that. that's something that I cannot change. So that's just different. Um, it's permanent. You cannot exhume the body of a cremated person and put them back together. It's done. They are in here forever. And once you cremate them, there is no piecing it back together. A big one is fear. A lot of people have a huge fear of being buried alive, but the reality of that is you are already gone. It's no different than the fear of being buried alive in the ground. People are terrified that they're going to burn. So whether you're being buried or whether you're being cremated, you have a fear of death itself. That's the fear of death. It's not anything that's going to make it better or worse with what happens to your body after the fact. And then another one is the greenhouse gas effect. So you actually are burning a body which contains a lot of chemicals, a lot of fat tissue, a lot of things. But there are some environmental friendly options for that they have come up with nowadays because technology is awesome. There is an alkaline hydrolysis cremation now, which is a water cremation. And it actually uses less energy and it's a biocremation. You can do some research behind that if you choose. And it's a really cool process. There's also a biourn. So after you're cremated, you can take your remains, you can put it into what is kind of like a shell, a rooted shell of like tree. So your ashes go in there and then you can have that planted. So you're repurposed into a tree, then you're planted. And so it's kind of cool because you're providing oxygen for the next generation. There's also a sea burial. There is a place in Florida called Eternal Reefs. It is a nonprofit. You take your ashes and you can donate them. Also, your pets, you can donate your pets' ashes, and they create reef balls. So they take them, they create these really cool reef balls, and they put them back into the ocean, and it creates coral, and it creates a brand new ecosystem for marine life. It is absolutely amazing. Definitely something to check out. Like I said, it's called Eternal Reefs in Florida. It's a nonprofit. So if that's something you want to look into, be my guest. And then another thing is burials themselves. In the U.S., there are over 800,000 gallons of formaldehyde every year seeping back into the ground, which is a huge number. So as far as like the greenhouse gas effect, if you do one of the more eco-friendly, the alkaline hydrolysis, cremation, if you do one of those, that will actually negate some of the greenhouse gas effects. But there's really not a whole lot you can do unless you're going to go into a vault as far as a burial goes. So you're going to negate some of that as far as the burials go as well. You're also going to stop overcrowding. If everybody's going to get buried, eventually there's going to be tons of overcrowding of just bodies on bodies on bodies on bodies underneath the ground, and we're not going to have a whole lot of space left. It's more cost efficient. And then there's so many restrictions in the grave sites and graveyards of what you can and cannot do, what you can put on the headstones and what you can't. So I just think that cremation is a really great way to go as far as what to do with your body after death. I think it's something that you should think about, consider, weigh your options, look into it, do your research on it. Definitely decide for yourself. I personally love it. My family we're definitely for it. Please consider it, and thank you for listening.